Hello, my name is Dominic Underhallhouse and welcome to another episode of Moonbreaker. And today we're going to be looking at something I didn't think I'd be coming back to this soon, but there are even more changes coming to Experimental and I could not be happier. So, you may have noticed that there was a discussion on the Discord recently about how people feel about the current patch and all the changes, because there was a huge amount of changes that came in. And me personally, as well as a few other people, we weren't, if there were other opinions as well, but felt that the gameplay felt a little bit flat. It felt like things weren't as impactful, things have been nerfed a little bit too much, and the game's dragged out a little bit. It felt a bit, overloading because it took so long to get through something. You felt like your brain was being taxed a bit too much. And while, it could just be that we're not used to it could be that I haven't found my stride with the meta yet, the devs are just still willing to keep testing, keep trying things out. And one of the things that's now back on Experimental is a sort of a tweak on the leadership system. So the first thing that leadership system is doing is no longer it's just going to be a flat amount generated. It's going to be, I believe it's going to be just sort of increasing after turn, but with a cap. You never expire, it never goes away, and it will cap up to a maximum of 50, and you gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10, and then you gain 10 per turn. But the other big change, in order to increase the pace of games, increase the impactfulness, make things feel a bit more fun, is they have gone completely wild with some of the units, and to be honest, I can't wait to try it out. One of the main concerns I had was that things started feeling a little bit neutered and watered down, and things like Crosshair going down in damage, we lost Deadeye losing some damage, we had a lot of things across that board, but now almost every single unit has got 1 extra damage. There are some exceptions here and there, and there's some where the damage has gone to an ability rather than the unit itself, but in general things have got +1 damage, everything's got +2 health, and everything has also got +1 to their healing. So you'll notice that the healing and health won't essentially be going up as much as the damage, because even though the health went up 2 per unit, you're going to have multiple units attacking it, so functionally things should be a bit quicker and the healing should feel a little bit slower. And healing's actually been really powerful recently, but to the point that it maybe was a bit too powerful, especially along the lines of things like Tona, Mystic, Manteo. So I want to just jump in and just have a quick look at a few things. One of the things I wanted to point out, Drum Dancer Tlali is now a 3 attack 1 drop with 7 health. That's going to be such a strong unit if you can get it into range. So that's really, really interesting on that front, especially considering she can deal up to 6. That might be one of the ones we need to keep an eye on. Maybe even Tlali could have been one that stayed the same, but I'm not looking at Gift Horse in the mouth. I'm happy to have all of this go ahead. Antios is one where they've actually put the damage, I believe. Oh no, they did actually. Originally they were going to put it into the ability rather than the attack, but it looks like they've actually gone for the attack as well. Maximus, however, hasn't got that. Maximus has actually just gone down to 1 leadership again. So I loved Maximus as a 1-drop, but he did feel comparably too strong. This is a really nice compromise. I think he's lost a health as well, so this means that he sort of fills that mould a little bit better. But now we've got things like Beatrice. Beatrice is up to 3 attack. We've got Titonia's Lob is now 3 damage in an area, which is going to be really fun to play with. Aria's Sniping is 3 damage. 6 Scattervine is a 2 damage unit now, and you can make copies. That's another one where I think that may be a tweak that needs to get reverted, but I honestly think this is going to be so much fun to play with. And then Flurry I wanted to mention as well. Flurry got increased on both the ability and their base damage, and I think Flurry was one of the cooler units but was struggling to be played. This might really, really buff all this up. So again, things like this stayed the same, others have increased. So all in all, really awesome looking things, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump into an AI game with the most recent list that we had, which is the Astra refresh list, and you'll notice as well, Astra's attack has gone up, but so has the health, because if you look at the increase in pace with the amount of extra attack, obviously the captains need a way to compensate, and it would be absolutely ridiculous to increase all of this and not give the captains a buff. So really, really glad to see that, but honestly, I'm just going to jump into an AI game and show you guys how this plays. If you're enjoying this content, please do hit that subscribe button, go join us over on Patreon, and just drop a comment down below what you think about these changes. And there's also going to be other videos coming up in the next week or so talking about, so this is a change that they're looking into themselves, and I want to talk about something that Jester and I talked about recently, about looking at potentially different map designs. So it was posted in the Discord, but I want to talk that through and see where we can bring influence from other games into Moonbreaker, and keep an eye out for that coming in the next, well, hopefully in the next few days. So for now, we're going to jump into this game and see what happens. Scenario Big Temple. I'm guessing. Okay, there's the sport. I'm still not familiar with the names. There we go. You've got the one big point in the middle. Yep. Okay, and then looking at our roster, this is so interesting. Just looking at these stats being different and the healths, I'm not really sure what to expect, so I'm quite keen to try that out. So there's their Antios, who's going to hit like a truck, but we can start chipping a bit more damage in if we can get somewhere nearby. I kind of want to get in that last little... Oh, we're actually going over the line. Okay, fair enough. Okay, we missed our 58%. And here, we're going to go with Talali. The reason we're going for Talali is they can only get up to 5, and Talali still has 7 health. So if we pop this down here, and of course we might as well grow a Cinder Orb, but it wouldn't be sensible not to, we can then see what happens. Now, the thing with this system that people didn't like initially of having the growing resource is that it did end up sometimes with a snowbally style of game. However, it's not necessarily going to be an issue if we find other ways to account for it. So I'm aware that this is obviously something that can happen, but it doesn't need to be necessarily what does happen. Okay, so what's interesting about this is if we hit this attack, okay, they are going to use it, so that's not ideal for us, but it'll do. Because what we can do here actually, so if we deploy something onto, I mean, let's just go with, say, Beatrice over here or something like that. We'll just move around in a minute. We don't care who it is right now. We need to hit this. 90%, come on. There we go. We can Battle Frenzy ourselves. We can hit this and clear it out. And then what we can also do is just come over here, move Astra in over here, into the breach again, clear out even more damage, and then maybe even just try and hide a little bit as well. Maybe we should have actually found somewhere else to play Beatrice, but... So this means that nobody's gaining the objective, we've dealt some more damage. I mean, this already feels so much faster, which is a really nice feeling. Like, okay, this is obviously an issue here, but that's fine. We can't expect things like this to survive. But I was saying before, I actually think that how often units were surviving was potentially an issue previously. Oh wow, that was a good shot. Because if everything's surviving, then it really slows down the pace of the game, and we need some other ways to account for that. Okay, so Stitchy's there. Jailbreak, interesting. So Jailbreak is obviously very powerful anyway. I think what we could do here, we're not going to find an angle to actually get this, so I think what we need to do is actually just try not to touch Jailbreak and poke Deadeye here. We'll try and just poke Stitch a little, and now with our leadership going up though, we can actually still do some interesting things. So, for instance, if we pop, I mean, there's no point doing it quite yet, we're still a little short. So maybe Blindside Wesley comes down, who's going to hit for 6? I love this. In fact, I think Savria in here is a nice little compromise. There's nothing else we can put in place, so Taria might as well just steal that from them. We'll grow our own Cinder. Let's just grow it over here near Taria. And there's nothing to do to the breach here, so end the turn. So you may notice, obviously this is AI, this isn't a realistic, PvP experience, but the pacing feels faster already, which is nice. I really, really do prefer the incremental style of growing your roster as the game develops. For me personally, one of the big advantages is that even though you should always have a game plan and you should know what you want to do initially, what this helps to do is mean that you can basically, you can adapt to what people are doing on the fly, but gradually throughout the game you build up your idea of, right, so if they do this I'm going to do that, if they do this I'm going to do that, and you can put together your own plan as the game goes ahead. So here we're going to want to shield barrier this. So we can get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage onto it. The question is, could we get... Okay, so what I'm going to try here is something a bit bizarre. In fact, no, this does... Because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, this should actually work. So if we place Scattervine down here... And obviously... Oh no, because we can't move out. Oops. Ah, but we haven't moved in yet, so maybe this works. Okay, we need to grow our Scattervine first. Interesting, we can actually just grow it here because Beatrice is going to kill it, which works for us. Then we move Taria over here. Oh, this isn't going to be enough. Seize initiative on herself. Try and hit this. Yeah, this isn't ideal. Oops. Okay, we got one. That was all we needed. So we can hit here. We can hit with Astra. Now we can move. Honestly, because they're mostly melee, I actually think we probably just top back here. Grow a Cinder here to slow them down. And use Saria to poke this. And then we've still got 2 Cinder left. We could play Tantan. But this stock, actually leadership left, sorry. But this stock's up till next turn, but that doesn't do anything either. So let's go with Tantan. And try and just block things into place. There we go. So you may notice, like I said, the game, things are dying quicker. And there is obviously that same thing of a sort of slight snowball effect. But we're playing against an AI. Whereas I think there does need to be a player 1, player 2 balance, because obviously one person getting their resources first every time is an advantage, but I just don't think that the flat leadership really makes a difference, because essentially that same problem exists. One person always gets their resources before the other one does, so I know you get to balance it out by counterplaying what your opponent plays, but to an extent you can do that anyway, and it's all about sort of finding options. So, ooh, okay. Yeah, okay, they kill the Vine. We weren't hoping for that, but it's pretty reasonable. And now we can potentially see, look at this. Like, just the amount of damage you can hit through armor. This feels so much nicer being able to hit through armor. I can't tell you how many times I felt that armor wasn't. It was doing too much basically. Okay, so Crankbait's something we're gonna have to kill. Oh, interesting. It doesn't look like Crankbait's got much extra health. Okay, so Savria's coming here, so maybe it's Savria we have to kill after all. But so I do think that this is maybe still pushing the captains down a little too quickly, but there's ways around that. You know, I'm not thinking that this is the only way we can ever try and solve this issue, but I think this is a really, really positive route. So what can we take out here? Hit and run is going to be an issue no matter what. So do we try and take that out? Do we try and take Saria out? I think maybe hit and run. Because getting that is nice, which means that if we get this with Astra, then we can line up here to get this and Crankbait. And that means we don't get attacked back either. We can Tantan on that. And just again move and hide. Saria kills Stitchy. We probably want to shield barrier something, but it's probably just herself. And then here, we're not worried about Cinder Generation here. We're just going to pop Shrapnel down. And probably just about here. We want to turn this around and get to the point where we can start working on their crew. In fact, what we can do, move over here, steal a Cinder, and into the breach, and just get a little hit off of Beatrice and start this chain going. Start the damage going, rather. So, again, the pace of this game feels so much better, because the gradual build-up I think is important. I don't think you want to just jump into the immediately, most intense part of the game in terms of what counterplays you can do, what's your whole strategy. You want to be able to see what happens on your opponent and adapt bit by bit, rather than commit to the board and then either be countered or not be countered, which obviously is not hugely the case right now. It will be in part, but what will happen is the more units we get and the more counters people figure out to other units, it would potentially start feeling a bit more rock, paper, scissors rather than anything else. Okay, so we know Sabria's not going to hit anyway. Yeah, so now at this point we can start turning on the captain and just start pushing damage through. We're obviously losing health here, so we're going to want to get our Neck Divine out fairly soon. But this is going absolutely how I want it to. And it feels good. That's the most important thing. This feels comfortable. There is... Ooh, and do you know what? Noxie is actually better in this format by a lot. Very interesting. Okay, so we need to shield something else. We need line of sight for that, don't we? So I'm just going to come here and start blasting. Ooh, that hit there as well. Okay, well in that case we don't care about hitting Noxie. We can just melee it immediately. And just move back. If we can... Okay, so where can Shrapnel move to? Shrapnel can move to here. And with the double shotgun now being even more damage, can potentially... Oh wow, we're going to hit loads of stuff. Okay, so Beatrice can't even move. This feels great for Shrapnel. So let's just first take a shot here. Take that shield off.
We got a leader.
We will push the damage through. We're going to risk killing our own stuff here. Because then we can move over here. We can into the breach.
Feel more motivated?
And send shrapnel over here. We just want to get... Okay, so... This looks about right. Attack both of these. Awesome. Okay, what's left? Tanton can come over and seize another hunt the Toxoid. In fact, we maybe didn't need to. We could just shoot it. That's fine, we missed. So that worked out well. We'll shield barrier ourselves again. And again, I feel like I can play my big units now, which I didn't do before. So this is a huge improvement in my mind. Like, I don't feel like I'm having to sit there and plan 2 or 3 turns in advance which unit I want to play. But, you know, because back then you needed to decide if you even wanted to play a big unit on the live version. Whereas now we can adapt a little bit more fluidly. You don't have to prepare as far in advance. You still can obviously adapt and you can still play your different things, but I really like this resource. And the fact it doesn't go away either means that, you know, if there was, say, some efficient units you wanted to play early on just for utility, you could save the additional resources for later until they're more relevant. So obviously that's a bit of a risk in that you're losing value because you're having less leadership worth of units on the battlefield at a point in time, but it'll add up in terms of add up in terms of utility more than power. That's what you need to basically aim for. Ooh, Fury is interesting now as well. Okay, so let's just shoot all of these. Clear house, shoot Retaria. Move back. Move in. Into the breach again. Shrapnel this for a bunch more damage. And attack with Astra. And let's get Savria in for the final. And there we go. So that felt really dynamic to me. It had... So I still enjoyed being able to use abilities more. I really like that part of the leadership system. Leadership and Cinder system. I never disliked that part of it. You know, I don't want to say that at all. I'm not sure I liked the lack of scaling resources. This feels better to me just naturally. It feels less taxing in terms of how you list build as well. Like, you're going to have to still put some in for Cinder consideration, but it now means you can focus on sort of a leadership style a little bit differently. You can just put bigger things in without having to plan how many turns in advance you need to play smaller units to save up for it, which is really nice. You get to play all your big toys. And also just the increase in damage across the board feels great. Like, I really like the pacing change that this has brought back to the game, and that game was a lot quicker, because you had 12 minutes 40, and I was sort of figuring it out, talking it through, working out how things are going to go with a non-optimized list. I think that's a really nice version there. So, obviously things like this are going to need tweaking. I think nobody will disagree with that, but I think it's a really good step to taking the good progress we've already made with Moonbreaker and adding it on as well. I've already seen more things on here that I'm going to want to talk about as well, so keep an eye on the channel. There's going to be plenty more coming your way. If you've enjoyed this, please do hit that subscribe button. Please join us over on Patreon. It's the best way to support the channel. And just drop a comment and let me know if you find this sort of thing helpful. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and most importantly, is to have a good day.